Okay, check this. You're climbing steadily toward your goals. Your work is gaining recognition, your ideas are taking shape, and then you notice it. The subtle resistance, the whispered criticisms, the convenient misunderstandings that seem designed to trip you up. Someone, or perhaps several people, appears to be working against you. Your first instinct might be anger. Maybe it's the urge to retaliate, to defend yourself publicly, to match their energy with your own resistance. But what if I told you that 2,000 years ago, some of the most powerful figures in human history faced this exact situation and developed a framework not just to survive it, but to use it as fuel for unprecedented growth? The Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, didn't just theorize about opposition from the comfort of academic halls. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire while his own generals plotted against him. Epictetus was born into slavery, facing daily degradation. Seneca navigated the treacherous politics of Nero's court, where one wrong move could mean death. These weren't armchair philosophers. They were people who confronted real enemies, real betrayals, and real threats to their lives and livelihoods. And yet, they thrived. Today, we're going to explore the Stoic framework for not just surviving when others plot your failure, but for transforming that opposition into your greatest advantage. This isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about developing an unshakable internal foundation that allows you to respond to hostility with wisdom, to convert obstacles into opportunities, and to maintain your peace while others lose theirs. Part 1. Understanding the dichotomy of control. The foundation of Stoic resilience begins with a principle so simple it seems almost obvious, yet so powerful that mastering it can revolutionize how you experience opposition. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control, and Epictetus explained it perfectly. Some things are within our power, while others are not. When someone plots your failure, they control their actions, their words, their schemes. You control none of that. What you do control is your response, your interpretation, your attitude, and your actions moving forward. This distinction isn't just philosophical hair-splitting, it's the difference between peace and perpetual torment. Think about how much energy most people waste trying to control the uncontrollable. They obsess over what others think of them. They replay conversations trying to change outcomes that already happened. They catastrophize about scenarios that may never occur. It's exhausting, and more importantly, it's completely ineffective. Marcus Aurelius, who had absolute power as emperor, yet understood he couldn't control the hearts of his subjects or the loyalty of his generals, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't just inspirational rhetoric. This was survival wisdom from a man surrounded by people who would benefit from his downfall. Here's how this applies practically. When you discover someone is undermining you at work, spreading rumors, or actively working to sabotage your projects, your mind immediately generates a cascade of reactions: anger, hurt, anxiety about the future, the desire for revenge. The Stoic approach asks you to pause and categorize. Their gossip, not in your control. Their schemes, not in your control. Your reputation in their eyes, not in your control, but your response, completely in your control. The quality of your work, in your control. Your integrity, in your control. How you treat others, including your detractors, entirely in your control. This isn't about passivity, it's about precision. It's about directing your finite energy toward what actually produces results, rather than dissipating it in the infinite void of trying to control other people's minds and actions. Seneca put it beautifully. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. When you worry about what your enemies might do, you're suffering in advance for something that may never happen. And even if it does happen, you're suffering twice, once in anticipation and once in reality. The Stoic eliminates the first suffering entirely by focusing only on what's actually present and what's actually within their power to change. Part 2. The practice of obstacle transmutation. Now we arrive at perhaps the most revolutionary Stoic concept, the idea that obstacles aren't just things to overcome, but raw material for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This sounds paradoxical until you understand what the Stoics really meant. When someone plots your failure, they're inadvertently giving you several gifts, though they certainly don't intend to. They're testing your resilience, forcing you to sharpen your skills, exposing weaknesses in your approach that you might never have discovered otherwise, and providing you with the opportunity to demonstrate character. Let's break this down with a real example. Imagine you're working on a project and a colleague is actively undermining you, missing deadlines on their portions, providing incorrect information to others about your work, questioning your competence in meetings. The natural response is to view this as pure opposition, as something bad happening to you. The Stoic reframe asks, what is this situation demanding you become? Perhaps it's requiring you to improve your communication so clearly that misrepresentation becomes impossible. Maybe it's forcing you to develop better documentation practices. It might be teaching you to build alliances with other stakeholders so you're not dependent on one person's cooperation. It could be revealing that your leadership skills need development, or that you need to learn how to navigate organizational politics more effectively. Each of these skills is valuable far beyond this particular situation. Your opponent, in trying to harm you, is actually forcing you to develop capabilities that will serve you for your entire career. They're your unwitting mentor, though they'd be horrified to know it. Epictetus used the metaphor of training. Difficulties are things that show a person what they are made of. Just as a boxer needs resistance to develop strength, you need opposition to develop resilience, strategic thinking, and emotional fortitude. A life without obstacles would leave you weak and unprepared for inevitable challenges. But here's the crucial part. This transmutation of obstacles requires intentional practice. It doesn't happen automatically. You must actively look for the hidden advantage in every setback. You must ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? What strength does this require me to develop? This is not toxic positivity. You're not pretending something bad is good. You're acknowledging that difficulty is difficult and then choosing to extract value from it anyway. It's the difference between saying, this betrayal is actually a blessing in disguise, and saying, this betrayal is painful and I'm going to make sure I grow from it so it wasn't for nothing. Part 4. The discipline of perception. How you perceive a situation determines how you experience it. The Stoics understood that between an external event and your response lies a critical space, the space of interpretation. In that space, you have complete freedom. When someone undermines you, the objective facts are limited. They said something, they did something, they created a particular outcome. But the story you tell yourself about what it means, that's entirely your construction. And that story determines whether you suffer or grow. Consider two people facing the same betrayal by a colleague. Person A interprets it as, this proves I can't trust anyone. People are terrible. I'm a target. My career is over. I'm not cut out for this. Person B interprets the same event as, this person has shown their character. Now I have clarity about who they are. This is teaching me to be more discerning. I'm learning valuable lessons about organizational dynamics. Same event, radically different experiences. The difference is entirely in the discipline of perception. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to look at things as they actually are, stripped of the emotional narratives we drape over them. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This might sound like magical thinking until you realize he's talking about psychological harm, not physical harm. Someone's scheme against you is just that, their scheme. It only becomes a source of suffering when you add layers of meaning. This means I'm inadequate. This means the world is against me. This means I'll never succeed. The Stoic practice is to see it simply as what it is, another person's actions which may or may not affect your outcomes, but which certainly don't need to affect your inner tranquility. This doesn't mean being naive. You can recognize that someone's working against you and take appropriate protective actions, while simultaneously refusing to create a victim narrative that poisons your inner life. You can be strategically aware without being emotionally hijacked. The practice here is constant interrogation of your own interpretations. When you notice yourself getting worked up, ask, what story am I telling myself about this? Is that story definitely true? Is there another way to see this situation? What would a wise person make of this? Part 5. Responding with strategic virtue. Now we get to the practical question. How should you actually respond when others plot your failure? The Stoic answer is elegant, with virtue as your strategy. This might sound weak or naive, but let me show you why it's actually the most powerful response possible. The 4 Stoic virtues are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Each provides specific guidance for dealing with opposition. Wisdom means responding strategically rather than reactively. When someone undermines you, wisdom asks, what's the intelligent response here? Sometimes it's direct confrontation. Sometimes it's building alliances. Sometimes it's documenting everything. Sometimes it's simply continuing to do excellent work and letting results speak for themselves. Wisdom chooses based on effectiveness, not emotion. Courage means acting despite fear. It's having the difficult conversation with your saboteur. It's advocating for yourself when you'd rather stay silent. It's maintaining your standards even when it would be easier to compromise them. But it's also the courage to not retaliate when you could, to take the high road when the low road beckons. Justice means treating people fairly, including your enemies. This doesn't mean being a doormat, it means not becoming what you oppose. If someone spreads lies about you, justice doesn't require you to spread lies about them. It requires you to speak truth. If someone tries to damage your reputation, justice doesn't require you to damage theirs. It requires you to let your character speak for itself. Temperance means emotional regulation and proportionate response. You don't escalate situations unnecessarily. You don't let anger drive your decisions. You maintain composure even when provoked. This isn't suppression of emotion, it's sovereignty over emotion. Here's what's brilliant about this approach. Virtue is its own protection. When you consistently act with integrity, wisdom, and courage, you become difficult to successfully undermine. Lies about you don't stick because everyone who works with you knows your character. Attempts to sabotage you fail because your work quality speaks for itself. Political maneuvering against you backfires because you've built genuine relationships based on trust. Moreover, this approach allows you to sleep at night. You're not becoming the thing you oppose. You're not sacrificing your peace for short-term victories. You're building a reputation and a character that will serve you far beyond this particular conflict. Seneca wrote, The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This isn't just morally superior, it's strategically superior. Your opponents want you to descend to their level, to become emotional, to make mistakes, to compromise your principles. Every time you refuse to do so, you win, regardless of the immediate tactical situation. Let me bring this all together with the ultimate Stoic insight. The people plotting your failure are ultimately irrelevant to your success or failure. They can create obstacles, certainly. They can make your path more difficult, but they cannot determine your destination unless you give them that power. Your success depends on the quality of your work, the strength of your character, the depth of your relationships, and your persistence in the face of setbacks. All of these things are within your control. Someone else's hostility is just weather. Sometimes the conditions are favorable, sometimes they're not, but the farmer still tends their field. The Stoic framework we've explored, understanding what you control, transmuting obstacles, preparing mentally, disciplining perception, and responding with virtue, these aren't just defensive strategies, they're the foundation for a life of genuine freedom and power. Freedom from being emotionally dependent on others' approval or hostility. Power that comes from internal alignment rather than external circumstances. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury," he was articulating a profound truth. Your greatest victory over those who plot your failure is to thrive anyway, to maintain your integrity anyway, to find peace anyway. Not despite their opposition, but in some ways because of it, because it forced you to develop strengths you might never have cultivated in easier circumstances. So the next time you discover someone working against you, you have a choice. You can waste your energy on resentment, retaliation, and worry. Or you can smile inwardly, recognize the opportunity they're unwittingly providing, and get back to work on what actually matters. Becoming the person you're capable of being, doing the work you're capable of doing, and living with the integrity you're capable of maintaining. The Stoics would remind you, you already have everything you need. Their plots cannot touch what truly matters unless you let them. Your task is simply to keep your attention on what's within your power, to extract wisdom from every difficulty, and to respond to hostility with the one thing that can never be defeated: virtue in action. That's not just surviving while others plot your failure, that's thriving because of it. That's the Stoic way.